Hey all, this is 012 Boku, and I'm back with another short review. And today's short review is, sorry about that son, I'm slipping more over here. Today's short review is, those are the notes. Yes, it's not the whole thing, but I'll show the whole thing when I do the full review with Jarek, but it is Fullmetal Alchemist, the original, episode 4 of Forager's Love. And this one, pretty straightforward, a little bit on the tin, as it says. It starts off with, Edward and Alphonse had to do a train, going out to Central to train to become state alchemists. Both of them talking about, are they doing this? Should all of them come? Can they do this together? Winry and Panako, Rockbell lamenting this fate with them and what happened between them all, and will the Elric brothers succeed? Panako is a little more optimistic in Japan, where in, America, the English voice acting, she's like a bit more melancholy and dark about it. It's pretty weird that way, but hey, it works. Bloody hell, I did not write down I didn't write down the town, but they stop outside this town where, after helping in some good deeds, stopping a criminal, which really makes Alphonse feel happy that alchemy can be used for good and not just bad or terrible things like they did to themselves. They hear from a local cop from this town about a local alchemist named Majahal, who, is the great alchemist there that they all come to admire and enjoy. Although there's creepy stuff going on with the town, they say ghosts and zombies walk, people have died, and they come to a town where the town is holding the Requiem Festival soon, where, they're celebrating the town and using fireworks to help souls find their way to the resting place with God. And, they get there, talking about how Majahal was a name in one of their dad's letters, it sounds like they were friends, had a correspondence throughout some point, and they got to know each other pretty well thoroughly. Suddenly, they get to the town, they run into a bunch of kids who scare them with fireworks. Meet this one girl named Claus. Yeah, I think it's Claus, who they attack him, and poor Edward's back as he keeps getting crushed in this episode by Alphonse armor, not once but twice. So they're just wondering about all the things that are going on. They run into the alchemist named Majahal. They speak with Majahal, saying how, their father had done these things. He had talked with you. Majahal just blurts out that he also knows that Alphonse Elric's soul is bonded to the armor. He's not really a real person. They're both, well, Edward's curious. Alphonse is more shocked that he knows, and, they're wondering if, Majahal knows anything about human transmutation. And, he says, well, that's left between us and God. That shouldn't be done at all just by scientific standards. This doesn't satisfy Edward, and, they're staying around the town. All of a sudden, we have two people who show up. Levy, who gives some jam to, forgot his name, Majahal. She gives a jam to Majahal, and then Claus and his father show up, and Claus's father wants his daughter to apologize to the Elric brothers and Majahal for what happened. She, refuses, says that nobody's doing anything about her dead sister, nobody knows what happened. Majahal almost heads to the river. I wouldn't say she probably wouldn't have drowned, but, the Elrics showed up right behind her, running after her, create an ice, yeah, they basically ice over the river, and she, just slides mercilessly on it. And, they get to talking, and Claus tells them how, there's this one woman named Rena that father saw the day, my sister died. They found my sister. It looked like she was sleeping, but she was dead. During my sister's funeral, me and my dad were mourning her at her gravestone. All of a sudden, my dad saw this specter as the wind picked up. It looked like a person in the, oh, I said Rena, sorry, Cutting, who was a former member of their town 20 years ago, who they believed all died. And, they see her specter. And Claus believes that this is the person they need to stop and see and go forward. All of a sudden, Edward and Alphonse go back to Majahal's. They're just wondering things. Edward hears a creepy sound in Majahal's house, just wondering what it is, and he's trying to piece things together. All of a sudden, that same night, you have Claus basically plan with her friends that they're going to trap and attack this ghost, and she wants vengeance for her sister. The Elrics go investigate the graveyard at night to see if there's any truth to these ghosts. They again fall into the hole. Edward's back for the second time. Suddenly, ghost shows up. Other kids run off. Claus, with undetestable amount of courage, basically runs at the ghost, wanting vengeance for his sister. Majahal gets in front, burns the ghost. That same sound that Edward heard before catches his interest. He tries to invest as the people are celebrating what Majahal did and everything else, because looks like the festival's going on. All of a sudden, Edward is investigating Majahal's house. Oh, forgot to mention too, Majahal was in love with Karin all these years ago and said the ghost can't be Karin who's killing people because, I loved her. She was the love of my life. She was selling blue roses. She fell off a cliff and died. That's the last we saw of her. And given the nature and gentle person she was, she wouldn't hurt or kill anyone in this town. But like I said, by this point, the Elrics were investigating. All of a sudden, Levy, his person who I guess it was his assistant and also brought him the jam, says, you guys should be poking around, naughty, naughty children. And this is a very strange thing. Obviously, it was probably a hypnosis technique. She brings a candle to Edward's eye level because Edward, is not refusing to give up this investigation. And all of a sudden, something snaps in Edward's eye and he gets like woozy, goes into the next room to where he sees these dolls of Karin that are created. And it's a very creepy scene. Edward passes out. Alphonse looks like he's going to try to help Edward. And then Majahal comes up from behind. Alphonse does some alchemy and then it just goes black. Next thing we know, Alphonse and Edward are, tied up and chained. So another great, GID moment, which again, I love when the heroes can find themselves in a bit of trouble. It's just me. I love the struggle stakes sometimes, old fashioned guy, Dudley Do Right, ho ho. But, as that goes on, he tells him the truth that, he's been behind these ghost incidences, that he's trying to take the souls of girls in the town, put him in these dolls to bring Karin back to life. He's just saying he needs to find the right soul because most souls reject that they're being brought back in a doll body. Go figure who would want that out of anyone. I know I wouldn't. So no wonder it isn't working. And then he wants Edward to help him bring Karin's soul back and put it into the doll. Edward flatly refuses. Majahal is shocked by this. All of a sudden, Claus shows up to thank Majahal. She sees what's going on and is scared, and she gets chopped in the back of the neck, knocked unconscious, and then Majahal is going to try to bind one of her souls to the doll. Levy tries to step up and, say this is madness, we're going too far, and then Majahal doesn't want to hear it. Edward and Alphonse escape, and then they notice how Levy, who got knocked down by Majahal after she rejected his things, they see the blue rose. And then as Majahal is trying to bind Claus's soul to the doll, Claus woke up from being unconscious and struggling to get out of the chair she's tied to. Edward basically uses his alchemy to remove the wall and shows, Majahal how, Karin didn't die. She fell, but she survived. She, hit her head, had amnesia for over 20 years. How they were able to figure this out in the short span of time. I guess some time passed, but hey, fast moving showing 20 some minutes, go figure. But they find out that, Karin hit her head, she had amnesia for 20 years, she remembered, she came back, and she was actually right under Majahal's nose the entire time. They remove Karin Levy's cloak, and she has the blue rose in her hair, and, Majahal sees this and says, what trickery is this? This is it, my Karin. She was a beautiful blue rose, a beautiful flower of health. She was perfect. And, Edward's saying, well, flowers can wither and wilt, but she still has beauty and age, and this is the same woman you've loved for all these years. So what you're doing is delusional. Stop this. And then Majahal just loses it. He basically refuses to believe it. He takes a screwdriver, uses his alchemy to turn it into a sword, starts, running right at the Elrics. Alphonse gets in the way to block Majahal. It bounces off. Majahal's taking one more run at it. Edward then takes the blue rose, turns it into a whip, uses it to knock the sword out of Majahal's hand. The sword flips in the air. Majahal just stupidly stares at it as it comes down in an epic way right through his stomach, skewering him. Levi Karim sees this, rushes to him, tries to comfort him. This is the man she loved. All of a sudden, you have Majahal looking at it going, "You're not the one I loved. No." And then one of the dolls is looking at him, and then, he's like, "That's the one I loved. See you soon, Karim." Thinking that, she's in the afterlife when she's there right in front of him. So again, he was obsessed and delusional this entire time. Levi Karim lets out this huge scream of anguish, unable to know what happened. Festival continues, and then, the Aldrichs are lamenting and going over what they've seen and thinking how this is. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention too, Lust was looking over Majahal as a possible interest, and then she realizes, Majahal's a hack. She left, only like 2-3 minutes into the scene, and she just left. But it's funny how, even at the beginning, the Elrics were already under surveillance by the homunculi. But, Lust left pretty early. And then, they're getting on the train ready to keep heading to Central to where, or not the train, the stagecoach heading back to the train station to Central. All of a sudden, Claus comes up looking like a nice, beautiful little girl, says thank you. They don't realize it's her. They're freaking out that, this is Claus. She looks like a girl now. And not a paper boy, as Edward makes a joke to earlier. And as they're getting, it seems like, Claus is developing feelings for the Elrics, and seems mostly more likely Edward Elric II specifically. And, Edward Elric actually yells back to her, you look much, prettier when you're not dressing as a paper boy. Nice little touch as the episode ends. So, again, great episode, really good stuff, very enjoyable. Again, have to give it to Edward Elric, Vic Mignogna, Romy Parker, great voice acting. Same thing with Alphonse again, Aaron Desmook, Rie Kugamiya. Have to give it to Majahal in this episode. Kevin Williams, Takeya Hoshi, great acting from those two guys. Really great villainous thing. Some people may say it was a little bit of a subdued performance, but I loved it. How he was subdued, a nice guy, seemed very warm and gentle, and then when the chips turned, the subtle madness reigned. And, it was just so great. I also have to give it to Claus, Charlotte or Charlotte Dupont. I'm going to say it's probably Charlotte. And, as in Charlotte, but it's spelled Charlotte, so I'm going to say Charlotte Dupont. Never heard of this person before. I'm going to say she probably was a kid, too, that they used for this episode, because it sounded like they used a lot of actual kids in Fullmetal Alchemist, which, again, I know they're not the best at acting, but, hey, thumbs, Funimation, that was actually a very good move. So I got to give it to Claus, too, Charlotte Dupont. She did and Akiko Yajime did a great performance as the little girl wanting vengeance for her sister. So great performance there. All in all, a good episode, a fun one, one that's really just great. And, I know people say it's filler, didn't do good, but it's a part of the adventure, and this episode really was a part of the Elric's growth, where they could see good and bad come of the situation of alchemy and how they could have almost been Majahal in this situation. So, overall, great episode. But what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below and let me know. This was a bit of a long one. Sorry I went a little high in the explanation, but hey, 15 minutes, But, just let me know what you think, and I'll speak to you guys again later, alright? 1-2 Boku, deuces.